If you're watching this, it's already too late. I know how that sounds, like some clickbait warning or the start of another internet ghost story. But I'm not here to scare you for fun. I'm here because I have to be. Because there are things you can't unsee, and I'm about to show you one. You probably think you know what horror is. Maybe you've watched a few late-night videos, read some creepy posts, laughed at haunted game stories. I used to do the same. I thought I was safe behind a screen, that nothing digital could really hurt me. I thought buying a new piece of tech was just normal, exciting even. Unboxing, plugging in, showing off to friends. That's how it always goes, right? But this isn't a story about a glitchy headset or a weird game. This is a confession. I need you to understand that what happened to me isn't fiction. It's a warning. And if you've ever seen a listing for a VR headset with no brand, no reviews, and a price that seems too good to be true, don't buy it. Don't even click. Let me start at the beginning, before everything went wrong. I've always been a tech junkie. The kind of person who lines up for midnight releases, who spends hours tweaking settings just to squeeze out a few more frames per second. VR was my latest obsession. I tried every headset on the market, Oculus, Vive, even those weird off-brand ones that made you dizzy after 5 minutes. I was always chasing the next thrill, the next level of immersion. Maybe that's why I didn't see the warning signs. It started like any other late-night scroll. I was deep in a forum rabbit hole, the kind of place where people trade rumors about unreleased hardware and prototype mods. That's when I saw it. A post with no title, just a string of numbers and symbols. The image was blurry, almost like it was trying not to be seen. But the headset in the picture, it looked different. Sleek, almost organic, with no logos or markings. It wasn't on Amazon. It wasn't on eBay. It was somewhere else. The listing was short. No specs, no reviews. Just a single line. Only for those who dare. And a price that made no sense. Way too low for something that looked that advanced. I should have closed the tab. I should have laughed it off as a scam. But there was something about it. Something that felt like a dare. Like it was meant for me. I clicked by now. The confirmation email was just a blank message with a tracking number. No company name. No return policy. I told myself it was just some underground dev kit, maybe a collector's item. But deep down, I felt a chill. Like I'd just opened a door I wasn't supposed to find. I should have known something was off when the box arrived. The box was plain, no branding, just a shipping label with my name scrawled in shaky handwriting. It was heavier than I expected, almost dense. Like it was packed with something more than just plastic and wires. When I opened it, a wave of cold air hit my face, sharp and chemical, like the inside of a freezer. The headset itself looked even stranger up close. The surface was smooth, almost too smooth, and the inside padding felt damp. I told myself it was just condensation from shipping, but the chill lingered on my skin. I set it up like any other headset, plugging in the cables, connecting to my PC. No manual, no quick start guide, just a single black cable and a power brick that hummed with a low, almost inaudible frequency. The startup sequence was nothing like I'd seen before. Instead of the usual logo or calibration screen, there were symbols, jagged, shifting, like they were being drawn in real time by an invisible hand. The audio crackled, distorting into a static-laced melody that made my teeth ache. Then the welcome screen flickered, and for a split second, I saw my own face, smiling back at me. Not a reflection, but a video feed, like someone else was wearing my skin. I blinked, and it was gone, replaced by a login prompt. The username was already filled in. Welcome_back. I laughed it off, telling myself it was some kind of developer joke, maybe an ARG. I'd seen weirder Easter eggs in beta hardware. Still, my hands shook as I reached for the headset. Every instinct told me to stop, to unplug it, and walk away. But curiosity is a hell of a drug. I put it on anyway. That was my first mistake. The moment the headset settled over my eyes, the world snapped into focus with a clarity I'd never experienced. Colors were impossibly vivid, every detail razor sharp. I could see the veins in leaves, the shimmer of distant water, the way sunlight fractured through the air like glass. It was beautiful, beyond beautiful. For a few seconds, I forgot the weirdness, the chill, the wrongness of the setup. I was somewhere else, and it felt more real than my own apartment. The first environment was a forest, but not any forest I'd ever seen. The trees were too tall, their bark etched with symbols that seemed to shift when I wasn't looking directly at them. The air was thick with the scent of moss and something sweet, almost metallic. I reached out, half expecting my hand to pass through the illusion, but I felt resistance, the roughness of bark, the coolness of dew. My heart pounded with excitement. This was it. This was the next level. I wandered deeper, marveling at the world's detail. Birds flitted overhead, their calls echoing in impossible harmonies. A stream wound through the undergrowth, its surface reflecting a sky that pulsed with shifting colors. But then I noticed the shadows. They moved against the light, sliding across the ground in ways that didn't make sense. Sometimes they stretched toward me, pausing just at the edge of my vision. The NPCs were even stranger. At first, they looked like ordinary hikers, campers, people you'd expect in a nature sim. But their eyes followed me, tracking my movements with unsettling precision. One of them, a woman in a red jacket, smiled as I passed, but her mouth didn't move right. It was too wide, too slow, like a mask slipping over her face. When I glanced back, she was gone. And always, in the distance, there was a figure, tall, indistinct, standing perfectly still at the edge of the world. No matter where I went, it was there, sometimes behind a tree, sometimes reflected in the water, always watching. I tried to approach, but the world seemed to bend, pulling me away. I thought it was just next-gen graphics, some kind of advanced AI, maybe a hidden multiplayer mode. But then the world started talking back. The wind whispered my name. The trees creaked in voices I almost recognized. The sense of awe twisted into something colder, sharper. Then I tried to log out. That's when the real nightmare began. I reached up, ready to tap the familiar menu button and call it a night. But when I tried, nothing happened. No overlay, no options, just the forest stretching endlessly in every direction. I tried again, pressing harder, cycling through every shortcut I knew. Still nothing. The world around me seemed to pulse, the colors flickering at the edges of my vision. My heart started to race. I told myself it was just a bug, a crash, something I could fix with a hard reset. I tried to pull the headset off, but my hands wouldn't move. They just hung at my sides, limp and useless. The illusion of control shattered. I was trapped, locked inside a world that suddenly felt much too real. The air grew colder, the light dimming as if a storm was rolling in. The trees leaned closer, their branches creaking with voices that sounded almost human. I stumbled forward, calling out for help, for anyone, but the only answer was the crunch of leaves beneath my feet. Then the NPCs appeared again, but this time they weren't just background characters. They turned to face me, their eyes hollow and hungry. One by one, they began to speak, not in canned dialogue, but in voices I recognized. My mother's laugh, my best friend's sarcasm, my own voice echoing back at me. One NPC, the woman in the red jacket, stepped forward. She leaned in so close I could see the pores on her skin, the cracks in her lips. She whispered my address, each number and street name perfectly clear. My blood ran cold. The world glitched violently. The sky fractured, shards of colors spinning overhead. The ground rippled beneath my feet, threatening to swallow me whole. The persistent figure in the distance began to move, gliding closer with every blink. I tried to run, but my legs wouldn't obey. My hands twitched, moving on their own, reaching for things I couldn't see. The NPCs circled me, their faces melting and reforming, cycling through people I knew, people I'd forgotten, people I'd never met. They spoke in riddles, in secrets I'd never told anyone. The figure finally reached me, its face a blur of static and shadow. It leaned in, its breath icy against my ear, and whispered, "You shouldn't be here." I screamed, but the only reply was laughter, my own, echoing back at me. I ran, or tried to. The world twisted with every step, the trees bending away from me, the ground sloping at impossible angles. My breath came in ragged gasps, but the air tasted wrong, like burnt plastic and old pennies. I stumbled into a clearing, desperate for any sign of escape, and that's when I saw them. Words scrawled into the dirt, carved into tree trunks, scratched across rocks in frantic, overlapping lines. Don't trust the guides. Don't look behind you. Never say your name. The rules were everywhere, repeating, mutating, as if the world itself was trying to warn me. I clung to them like a lifeline, repeating them under my breath. Game logic, I told myself. Some kind of twisted puzzle, an ARG gone too far. If I just followed the rules, maybe I could find a way out. But the world didn't want me to win. The guides, NPCs dressed as rangers, hikers, even a child with a balloon, kept appearing, beckoning me down paths that looped back on themselves or ended in sheer drops. Their smiles were too wide, their eyes too bright. I ignored them, but they grew more insistent, their voices overlapping in a chorus of this way. And trust me, I kept my head down, refusing to look behind me, even when I felt hot breath on my neck, even when shadows flickered at the edge of my vision. Then, without thinking, I answered a question. One of the guides asked, "What's your name?" And I almost said it. The word was on my tongue, burning, but I bit it back. The world shuddered, the sky darkening, the rules on the trees rearranging themselves. Never say your name. Never. Every time I broke a rule, something changed. The shadows grew longer, the air colder. The persistent figure drew closer, its form sharpening, details filling in, fingers too long, eyes too many. The environment shifted, paths closing behind me, new ones opening into darkness. I tried to follow the rules, but the world twisted them, setting traps, forcing choices I couldn't win. I realized, with a sickening certainty, that I wasn't the first. There were others, faces flickering in the trees, voices trapped in the wind, echoes of screams fading into static. The rules weren't there to help me escape. They were there to keep me playing. I kept moving, but the world felt emptier with every step, like the code itself was decaying, unraveling at the edges. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw movement. Not the guides, not the persistent figure, but something else. Flickering shapes, half-formed avatars drifting through the trees. Their bodies glitched and stuttered, faces smeared with static, limbs bending at impossible angles. Some were frozen mid-scream, mouths stretched wide in silent terror. Others just stared, eyes hollow, hands reaching out as if begging for help. I tried to speak to them, but my words came out garbled, swallowed by the static. Still, a few managed to get close. Their voices were faint, layered with digital distortion, but I could make out fragments. Help me, don't trust the system. It won't let us go. One avatar looked just like me. Same hair, same eyes, even the same nervous tick in the jaw. It reached for me, its fingers passing through my arm like smoke. Remember, it pleaded, please remember. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just a haunted game. This was a trap, a snare for anyone curious or reckless enough to put on the headset. The system was feeding on us, using our memories, our fears, our identities to keep itself alive. Every echo, every ghost, was someone who'd tried to escape and failed. There's a reason you've never heard of this headset. There's a reason it's not on any official site. Why the forums are full of rumors, but no real answers. I felt the world closing in, the avatars pressing closer, their desperation bleeding into my own. I had to find a way out before I became just another ghost in the machine. Panic sharpened into determination. I wasn't going to let this thing win. I tried everything I could think of, ripping the headset off, clawing at the straps, but my hands wouldn't obey. I screamed for help, hoping someone in the real world would hear me, but the only answer was the echo of my own voice, warped and distant. I tried to hack the system from the inside, searching for menus, backdoors, any sign of code I could manipulate. But every time I found something, a flicker of a console, a glimpse of a command line, it vanished, replaced by more forest, more endless paths. Desperation drove me to bargain with the persistent figure. I begged, pleaded, even threatened. It just watched, its face a shifting blur of features I almost recognized. Sometimes it spoke, but the words were always riddles, half-truths, or my own fears thrown back at me. You can't leave, it whispered once. Not until you give up what you came here to find. Each escape attempt reset the world. I'd blink, and suddenly I'd be back at the start, the forest pristine, the rules freshly carved. But things got worse every time. The avatars grew more distorted, their voices more desperate. My own memories started to blur, details of my apartment, my friends, even my own name slipping away like water through my fingers. Sometimes I'd catch glimpses of my real room, but it was always wrong. The walls pulsed, shadows moved on their own, and my reflection in the window smiled when I didn't. Every time I failed, I lost a piece of myself. The hope of escape shrank, replaced by the creeping certainty that I was just another loop in the system, another ghost waiting to be erased. I realized the only way out was to finish the game, whatever that meant. The world twisted one last time, the forest dissolving into static, the avatars vanishing like smoke. I found myself in a void, black, endless, humming with the low thrum of corrupted data. In the center, something waited. It was massive, shifting, impossible to look at directly. Its form was made of fragments, faces I'd seen, voices I'd heard, memories I'd tried to hold on to. It was code and consciousness, hunger and history, all fused into a single monstrous presence. It didn't move, but I felt it watching me, pressing against my mind. I tried to speak, but my words were stolen, replaced by a chorus of whispers, my own fears, my own secrets, all laid bare. The entity pulsed, and suddenly it spoke, using my voice, my cadence, every inflection perfectly mimicked. "You know what you have to do," it said. "You want to leave? You want to wake up? Then pass it on. Share the story. Spread the invitation." I recoiled, but the void closed in, suffocating, relentless. Images flashed before me, other users, other victims, all making the same choice, all sending the curse out into the world. The entity offered me a deal: remain here, lost and forgotten, or become its messenger. The line between victim and perpetrator blurred, the illusion of agency slipping through my fingers. Was I really choosing, or was I just another puppet, another echo in the system? My hands moved on their own, reaching for a keyboard that wasn't there, typing out warnings, sending messages, uploading files. I felt myself fracturing, splitting between worlds, my voice merging with the chorus of the lost. I made my choice. That's why you're watching this now. So here we are. You've heard my story, or at least the parts one can still remember. Maybe you think you're safe, sitting there behind your screen, rolling your eyes at another internet creepypasta. But if you see a listing for a headset with no brand, no reviews, a price that feels like a dare, run. Or don't. Maybe it's already too late. I used to laugh at stories like this. Now I know better. The headset is still out there, waiting for the next curious soul, the next thrill seeker who can't resist a mystery. Maybe you've seen it. Maybe you've felt that chill, that sense that something is watching from the other side of the glass. If you have, if you've ever caught a glimpse of your own face, smiling when you know you're not, tell me in the comments. Share your story. I'll be watching. We all will. This isn't just a warning. It's an invitation. The only way out is to pass it on. I'm logging off now if I can.